glad and grateful that you are joining us tonight. I'm Reverend Julie Brooks, and I am joined tonight by my sisters of the bark, Reverend Claudia Kohn and Reverend Nura Hirmina. I also want to thank David, our Abora Zoom master, for his help this evening. As many of you know, trees are honored by many of the world's wisdom traditions. In Judaism and Islam, tree planting, for example, signifies a new year and is considered one of the most sacred forms of charity. Numerous people of faith, including and certainly not limited to Taoists, Druids, the Yoruba, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the indigenous peoples of the Americas, are among those who revere standing people as sacred sentient beings who embody innumerable lessons for living. Trees have seen so much throughout Earth's history in their quiet and patient ways, standing in fields and forests, straddling the banks of rivers and verges, between sidewalks and roads. Trees have provided direction, protection, and nourishment for countless species. They have endured, survived, and borne witness to innumerable celebrations and calamities. Can you imagine the stories they have to share with us, the wisdom they have to impart? For the next hour, we're gonna log some tree time together, exploring the wisdom of trees through poetics, deep breathing, spacious stillness, and journaling. I'll encourage you all right now to make sure that you have your journals and pen or pencils close by. We'll also invite you at various points this evening to share your experiences and reflections with the larger group. For now, I invite you to gently plant yourselves in your spaces, perhaps close your eyes, and enjoy The Memory of Trees by Enya.
Let's start with a breath. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness, discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. "It's simple," they say, and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Thank you, Mary Oliver. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it over to Claudia.
I am just inviting everyone to take a breath after those beautiful words. Let's just reflect for a moment. I want to share with you a more personal reflection. The Dharma of trees. Trees are an integral part of my life's landscape, a continuous background, a frame around my living space, a reminder of my connection to all living things. Some of my earliest memories focus around trees, memories of summer days, lying on my back in the grass, looking up through the branches of oak or maple trees to see the play of sunlight on the dancing leaves. I remember a day in my teenage life when I raced outside to climb the ancient oak that lived in my back garden after a stormy argument with my mother. This was my refuge, my safe space. I could climb nimbly despite the tears that blurred my vision. About halfway up, I realized I was not alone. In the branches above me, settled comfortably near the top of the trunk, was my elderly upstairs neighbor, Mr. Peterson. I imagine he was in his late 70s at that time, and in my teenage view, you know, ancient. But imagine my surprise at finding another soul up that tree, particularly this old man. He smiled at me and invited me to join him up higher, saying, I like to come up here and sit when I don't want to be by myself. I'm sitting with my friend, this mighty oak. So we sat, the three of us, together in that healing space. What is this energy that is a tree? The writer Stephanie Kazan sees trees as an inherent embodied wisdom. In her book, Conversations with Trees, she talks about the intimacy of trees, the compelling intimacy of no self. Here's a tree, here is a human. And yet together we share a consciousness that is more easily felt than explained. Not separate, but part of a generous wholeness. As a Buddhist, I seek to learn from the Dharma. I take refuge in the Dharma. My definition of Dharma is the eternal and inherent nature of reality, universal truth, cosmic law, and order. The Buddha brought the Dharma to our attention, emphasizing it to be an act done in consonance with our highest nature. The Buddha always encouraged his followers to meditate out in nature. There, the trees shower us with calm and clarity from those ancient days forward to our own wandering days. When I look at trees, I see living Dharma. Trees compel beings to them with steadiness, calm, quiet strength. They live in an understanding of time quite distinct from my own. They have the ability to sway and bend, to reach and grow, to offer blessings of life, air, food, and shelter. More than anything, a tree is unutterably itself. Within any tree, let's take my friend the oak tree, there exist hidden, invisible worlds thrumming with life. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "The creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn." From one tiny acorn, a kernel bursting with potential, life can extend unto the millennia. Roots that set down even in a poor and rocky soil will burrow their way down to water and minerals and find sustenance. Some force of experience, of consciousness, some wild imagination lead those roots in determined exploration. That tiny acorn of potential has all the seeds of existence. The roots draw up moisture and nutrients, tangle with other roots, whooshing with communication and community. A great sangha, an organic sangha, which then compels the growth upward toward light and space, to create leaves and make food from sunlight, to reach up and out, not to create a zone of power, but rather an outstretched limb of life. People are so much more complicated. We also start out as tiny seeds of potential and grow down in our mother's womb, where there's nutrition and safety and steady communication of heartbeat and motion. Our whole existence is an expression of unity. We occupy a hidden, invisible world, experiencing life as being. With birth comes the dawn of consciousness, of self, no longer hidden, occupying a world of air and light and food. From here are established new ways of seeking stability, of finding a way to anchor in and reach up and out, to explore the space around us. Birth was the drusi federal, a Welsh term for the doorway to another world. Going through the doorway meant entering a way of being that is dynamic and steady at the same time, learning about the self as a process, the self as part of something more expansive. It is reaching down and up and out to find the connection which gives meaning to each being, each moment. When I was a child, I gravitated toward trees. I loved their steadiness, the friendly invitation they extend. As an adult, I'm as smitten as ever. I still love to stand under the trees and look up through the branches at the leaves and the filtering sunlight, shaking and waving even in the smallest breezes. I love to feel the bark under my fingers, full of mysterious grooves and bits of moss or sticky with sap. I still like to climb up as high as I can go and sit with my back against the trunk, legs dangling on either side of the branch, with a view farther and wider than I would ever experience on the ground. My parents divorced when I was quite young, and living with my single parent after that meant moving house frequently, moving schools, starting over again and again. Even in that chaos, the dharma of trees drew me in. Somewhere close by, I could always find a tree friend, a kind maple or an oak or pine, hugging the trunk, smelling the leaves and the soil. Climbing those branches was consistent and friendly. The tree, whichever tree I was meeting that day, was absolutely itself, steady and living to its highest nature. The song of dancing leaves soothes me. I can understand why so many cultures in the world encourage forest bathing. Just being around the trees reduces anxieties and brings harmonious thoughts, peaceful feelings. This is my Drusifideral, my doorway to another world, occupied by peaceful beings, these trees and their many kin. I thank the trees for embodied wisdom, for the blessings of life, food, air, and generosity. May this merit virtue be shared equally with all beings. Let's just sit in the energy of those words for a few moments. David, could we have the next slide? I'm going to hand this over to Rep. Julie now.
So I invite you now, as you're able, to put your feet flat on the ground, your open hands on your lap, and to close your eyes or lower your gaze. Soften your body as if you're planting yourself a bit deeper into the seat of your chair, the bolsters of your couch, or even the level cushion of the ground. Begin by sensing into the support you have from the ground beneath the soles of your feet. Pay attention to the warm, sturdy, balancing energy flowing into your toes, through your feet, and up through your ankles, into your legs, knees, and hips, rippling through your lower back, up your spine, into your shoulders, arms, and hands, rising up into your neck and your head. When you're ready, come down into your breath, noticing the sensation of breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Pay attention to the natural rhythm of your breath. Allow your breath to flow at your pace. Now I invite you to bring an image or a sensation into your awareness of the most striking or most beautiful tree you know or have seen or simply can imagine. Let the energy of tree come into greater clarity. Pay attention to what draws you in. Perhaps it's the crown of her canopy as it caresses the sky above, or their solid, steady roots digging deeply down into the darkness of dirt. Perhaps you're taken with the strong centered trunk, the texture of her coarse or smooth skin, his galls and knots, moist hollows, or rough cracks and seams rambling upward. As you pay closer attention, perhaps you can hear the songs of rustling leaves as a breeze brushes through the boughs, or baby birds chirping and screeching for food, the clicks and rasps of insects under the bark, or a woodpecker digging them out. Breathing in, notice the aromas, the wafting scents of sun-warmed pine, spruce, or honeysuckle, apple, peach, or lemon. Perhaps maple tree is making your mouth water a bit as you imagine tasting the sweet, velvety syrup she produced a few months ago. Or maybe you're enjoying the nutty tastes of pecan, walnut, or coffee. Now, as you're ready, bring your awareness of tree into your own body so that your sense of tree and the sensations in your body merge, becoming one. You might begin by noticing your toes squirming and scratching at the cool, moist soil. Your feet and legs pressing down, digging deeply and deliberately, tunneling firmly, fervently into Earth's dark den. As your hips rest into the sturdy embrace of ground, your back and torso straighten. Warm sensations swell slowly upward inside of you as your core is transformed into a resilient, ready trunk. As branches emerge, your limber, living limbs floating upward, outward. Your fingers now flourishing with fruit, flowers, or foliage, quiver and quake in a cluster of delight. Grounded and poised, your roots, trunk, and limbs unified and sustaining, your head becomes a crown, drenched in the warmth of sunlight or cooled by night's shade. You have arrived. As you bask in your bark-bounded bond, you might sense a feeling of uplift, a boost of balance, a renewed sense of resolve. Resting in your treeness, the timbre of your breath, of tree's breath, brings you more deeply into your arboriform. You are alive, animated, adaptable, perceptive, and patient. You are connected and communicating, even in silence and stillness, with the copse in which you dwell. You are grounded and generous, a witness to the cycling seasons, a refuge in unrest, a sanctuary for the serene. You are rooted in who you are, poised with potential, expanding with wonder. You are wise, you are here, and you are beautiful. I invite you now, for the next few minutes, to continue treeing to the sounds of nature. You might remain solid and sprouting, or you might choose to journal a bit, logging the significant seeds gathered here. Take these next few minutes to be tree. David, you can start the next video.
It's hard to come out of the forest. Let's come back into the space. You've got about 20 minutes for sharing. Share any reflections you have, any bird or tree poems, nature poems that you'd like to share into the space. We're going to stop about midway through, and Claudia will read another very short, sweet poem to us. And then we'll do some more sharing, so there's no rush, and the invitation is there. If you go to your participant pane at the bottom, you can raise your hand that way if you've never raised your hand here in the Zoom room. So if you raise your hand, be happy to call on you, and then you can unmute your line and share your reflection with the group that's gathered tonight. Or you could type it into the chat. I'd be happy to read it. Thank you, Leslie. Yes, the forest is always with us. Did you want to say anything into the space? You can unmute if you'd like.
The host has to, there we go. Okay, thank you, host.
Thank you, David.
I'm just gonna share a one-liner from Rabindranath Tagore that I wrote earlier in the chat. Trees are the earth's endless effort to speak to the listening heavens. I've always
Thank
loved
you.
that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Sarah's hand is up.
Well, my hand was not up. Was it another Sarah?
Oh, maybe not there.
Sarah McGee.
I'm
Sorry.
trying to say, may the forest be with you. So I guess you unmuted me just so I could say that.
Thank you.
Hello. I thought I'd share a story. Quite a few years ago, actually it must have been almost 20 years ago, I started studying with a wise woman herbalist, and I ended up apprenticing with her for 3 years. And 1 year we had to seek out our herbal ally, and which we did at a meditation, and I came up with black birch, which was a tree that I didn't really know then. I know it now. And one day I was just, well, there's my dog, washing dishes in my kitchen, just washing dishes at the sink and looking out, and I was looking, and there's this beautiful tree that used to lean out in this very graceful way, and I always watched it when I was washing dishes because it was a beautiful tree, and I just suddenly realized that it was black birch. And so I started meditating, and you can identify black birch because if you break it off, it has a very strong scent, like wintergreen scent. And so I went and I was meditating under the tree, and for a long time, and trying to connect with the spirit of the tree as I'd been taught, and I still do. And this very strong sense of the tree came to me, and it was this sense like, I watch you too. I watch you over there at the window washing your dishes every night. And it was such a touching and very rich communication, so direct with the tree, the spirit of the tree. And I don't usually share that story because sometimes when I say things like that, people look at me strange. But I've had a lot of experiences like that, and I find you can communicate with trees if you get very quiet. That's all.
Thank you. Beautiful story. I have a feeling this is the perfect place for that story to be shared. I don't think anyone here would argue with you.
Thanks so
Hi.
much. Hi, Nora. Thank you. First of all, I don't know if you can see, but above my couch is a wonderful artist work, and it actually shows the trees in the different 4 seasons. So I don't know how visible it is, but it's probably my favorite painting, artwork. The Tree of Life, it just has a lot of symbolism and meaning for me. So I want to share with you a poem. You may be familiar with it. I literally heard it many, many, many years ago. I think it was either elementary school or junior high school. I think it was elementary school when we had assemblies, like maybe once a month we would have an assembly, and they recited this poem every single assembly. So it just, I'm not going to talk. I will just read it to you. It's called Trees, and the poet is Joyce Kilmer. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Scott. I'm in the process of mourning the loss of a tree that's over 150 years old. 2 weeks ago, a wind came up and took it down. And so over the last 2 weeks, we've been, eliminating the debris. We chose to leave the trunk. The trunk takes probably 3 or 4 of me to reach my arms around it. It's huge. It just so happened that I was, some of you may be familiar with Richard Rohr. He's a very well-known Catholic, but he's very progressive, and he just happened to be talking about how more things in the world have souls than what what most people might want to admit. In one section, he says, when we love something, we grant its soul, we see its soul, and we let its soul touch ours. We must love something deeply to know its soul, its anima. Before the resonance of love, we are largely blind to the meaning, value, and power of ordinary things to save us and to help us live in union with the source of all being. In fact, until we can appreciate and even delight in the soul of other things, even trees and animals, we probably haven't discovered our own souls either. Soul knows soul through love, which is why it's the great commandment. And he noted Matthew 22:36. And I think it was just by fortune that I happened to connect his thought from a week or 2 ago with the fact that this was happening in my life. And I have to say that the loss of this tree has affected me profoundly.
Scott, thank you for bringing that into this space.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. This might actually be an appropriate follow-up, Scott. My heart goes out to you with the loss of that tree. I thought of this poem also because of being a Buddhist And in this time of COVID, of course, we are all contemplating death in lots of ways, perhaps new ways. To learn how to die, cut down a tree. Watch how so many years fall. You don't need to have planted it for it to be your life. You know countless trees have grown and will grow where this tree falls. Everyone alive now will be underground and will have gone from roots, branches, and leaves to roots, branches, and leaves many times. You've seen how the seed of a tree can rise from the pit of a stump. Wherever your feet touch the earth, you know you are touching where something has died or been born. Count the rings and stand on the stump and stretch your arms to the sky. Think, only because it was cut down could you do this. You are standing where no one has stood, but the dark inside a life that many years. This poem is by Antler.
Of Leslie.
Yes, I was actually asking about the author that Scott had been quoting, and Natalie very kindly wrote it into the chat. But now that, that's why I raised my hand, but I just want to share. I've been practicing Taoist Qigong for 20 years, and I've been teaching it for a few years. And I just want to share that the imagery and beingness of trees is brought into the practice so much to help people regain their balance and stability and literally their root. And that is exactly what we speak about as we cultivate the energy within the root. And it really is no accident. One of you wonderful presenters, I think it was Reverend Julie actually, speaking about the roots moving into the earth and absorbing and what have you. And in Eastern medicine, one of the most, a very important area, energy area, is on the bottom of the feet. It's related to the kidney energy. The point is kidney 1, but its actual name is bubbling springs. And it's through bubbling springs that we are able to absorb the energy of the earth. So much imagery in Eastern medicine as they name their energy centers and points. So that upward moving energy, if we are open to it, if our bodies are open to it, just like trees, okay, we're nourished with that energy through these bubbling springs, straight up into the legs and actually moving up into the lungs. And it's there that the oxygen that comes from outside and from the heavens mingles in that area of the body, and it's the kidney energy's power that keeps that oxygen inside the body. Trees' leaves, they breathe, so do we. Trees' roots, they absorb the water and the nourishment, and we do too. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Maya. Hello, Maya. Can you unmute yourself? Or David, do you need to unmute Maya?
Let me see.
There you go.
I love seeing all of your beautiful faces. This is really a joy. Until recently, I lived in downtown Boston, and there's a tree that's called the Ailanthus. I'm sure many of you know it because it grows up in cracks in the sidewalk. It grows out between brick of buildings. It was brought here by the Chinese many, many years ago, but it has very shallow roots. And in my alley behind my brownstone, we had an ailanthus that was growing up right up against the back of our house. And the tree had been there for 40 years, about as long as I had been there. And I loved that tree. I would wake up in the morning and go up to the kitchen on the top floor, and the birds loved it. They nested there. I would say prayers to the tree. And I started noticing that the back of the tree was being eaten out by termites. And I called an arborist, and he gave me the sad news and said, in another year, the tree might fall in the alley and take out a number of cars with it, let alone pray that there are no people. And so we cabled it. And at that point, it was only up until the 4th floor. 2 years later, the tree made it up to the 6th floor, which was the top of the building. And it had a sister, there's a male and a female, and it had a sister tree across the alley that came down in a big wind. And thank goodness no one was hurt, there were no cars. And I called my arborist and I said, it breaks my heart, but we really have to take the tree down because a wind comes along and he will go down too. Every morning for a month before they came, I wrote a letter to the tree, thanking the tree for being there and for blessing me. And I pinned notes all over the tree. And the morning that the arborist came, I was out in the alley crying. And he said in all his years removing trees, he had never, ever encountered anyone who was crying. And I could not watch them take the tree down. And I went back in the house and they took my tree down. I saved some of the big intersections. And about a month later, I get this lovely, lovely packet in the mail of all of the notes that I had written. The tree that the arborist sent me and said, we all love trees. And whether you have roots or you don't have roots, we are blessed by your presence. And that to me was a fantastic present.
Thank you, Maya. I don't see any other virtual hands raised. Yes, Leslie.
I was so excited waiting for this gathering because I love trees so much. And I wanted to share this hymn from the Vedic tradition. You probably already know that Tulasi Devi, the holy Basil of India, just commonly known as Tulsi, okay, it's considered very, very sacred, and it's actually an emanation of Lakshmi, who is the goddess with her husband Vishnu of abundance, good fortune. One of my practices is when I'm preparing plant life in the kitchen, when I'm preparing herbs, growing herbs, when I'm in my little community organic garden area, there's a tiny little 4-liner poem, which I would love to share with you in the chat. I'll write it in. Nama Tulasi Kalyani, Nama Vishnu Priye Shubhe, Nama Moksha Pradadevi, Nama Sampad Pradayini. Salutations to Tulasi, the auspicious. Salutations to the beloved of Lord Vishnu. Salutations to the goddess who gives liberation. Salutations to the one who gives all prosperity. So before we end, we have a few minutes. I think I can get it into the chat.
Thank you, Leslie. That would be beautiful. Adam, I wasn't sure if you wanted to say anything. I thought maybe I saw a little bit of a tentative wave into the camera. David, can you unmute Adam?
You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Greetings, everybody. It's so great to see so many faces.
Hi, Amandra.
Hey, I was so grateful to see this gathering coming. I've had a special relationship with trees for many, many, many years. But when I lived in Ghana for a year, I had the most profound experience with trees. Ghana, up in the mountains, has a botanical garden where they have trees from all over the world in this one spot. And people go up there to spend time and retreat. So I had gone up there, I think I was on a 3 or 4 day retreat. And so I would walk around. But right in the middle of this botanical garden, they have a round group of palm trees. And these palm trees go up like, I don't know, 100 feet or so. They're huge. And I remember standing there one morning in meditation with them. And they invited me to grow myself as big as they were. And to go up to the top and to look out over the mountain. And it was a profound experience that I could see in my mind's eye, the whole valley, looking down on people, going to get water, ladies walking with water on their head, children playing. It was amazing. And right in the center of this whole garden was this huge, huge tree that was hundreds of years old. And everybody used to stand at this tree and pray. And when I was leaving, I was in the car and I heard this voice say, "Goodbye, thank you for coming." And I turned and I could see this tree had a face. It blew me away. It had eyes, nose, mouth right in the trunk. And I guess you had to be a distance away in order to make it out as a face. And I was like, whoa, bye, Mr. Tree. And the last thing I want to say is here in Carlsbad, California, we have these trees. I don't know what the name of them are, but the roots are on top. They're not under the ground, they're on top. And these trees are like humongous. And they're all over the city of Carlsbad. And they pick up the sidewalk and the city comes up and just makes the tree okay with it doesn't do anything to the tree. It does something to the sidewalk, right? And there's this one tree down the street that I pass by when I'm walking, and it told me that its name is amethyst. And I'll go down and I'll pass by and I'll hug amethyst. I can't, it's too big to get my arms around, and I don't care if people are looking at me hug this tree. I gotta go see amethyst today when I go on my walk. So yeah, trees are special. They have spirits and souls. And
Sure.
I moved outside on my balcony too, so I could see, because I got trees all around me. So thank you for doing this.
Take us all with you when you go, Amandra.
I will.
All right, so I think Adam
Okay.
hands. Adam is going to be our last comment for tonight. This has been so lovely. Hi, Adam.
Hi, this is so delightful, beyond. And I have to tell you, the universe is so magical at times. I'm entranced with my first summer reading, which is the Overstory by Richard Powers, which is essentially all about trees. Every story, and it's beyond entrancing and spiritual in every paragraph. And I was so moved. I just wanted to offer this very short piece by Emerson. The greatest delight which the fields and woods minister is the suggestion of an occult relation between man and the vegetable. I am not alone and unacknowledged. They nod to me, and I to them. The waving of the boughs in the storm is new to me and old. It takes me by surprise, and yet it is not unknown. Its effect is like that of a higher thought or a better emotion coming over me when I deemed I was thinking justly or doing right. Ralph Waldo Emerson on the nature of trees. This is delightful, and the timing is perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you. And the timing is absolutely perfect. It's exactly 8 o'clock. If you'd like to unmute your lines, speak some magical words into the space, say hello to your fellow tree lovers. We'll keep the line open. We'll keep the room open for another couple minutes. David, we've brought our evening to a close. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a glorious evening. Go hug a tree. Go kiss a tree.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.